So I'm really excited to have my dear friend Ross here. Ross McCray is one of my closest friends, and we've known each other for many, many years. He is currently the CEO of Reorient, and he is also one of the most conscientious, wise person that I know, in spite of his young age.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm excited to have him here on the podcast. I'm also excited for him to share some of his point of view, because he has pretty contrarian point of view for a lot of people. So welcome, Ross.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very happy to be here.
So I was inspired at Burning Man after I saw Mongolian statue about 10-story high.
Wow.
That a warrior spirit conversation. So hence why this podcast is called Noble Warrior. And the whole idea is to men gathering, discuss what it means to be man in modern times. Try some of these Mongolian tobacco.
What is it and how is it?
So smell it first. I'll tell you what it is. It's very minty. So this is a Mongolian tradition. Instead of a handshake, they will exchange these snuff tobaccos to each other, right? And then you will then use either put it in your palm of your hand and then snuff it, or for convenience purposes, we'll use an applicator. So I'll demonstrate. I'll show you how to what it is. Put it in the applicator. Doesn't need a whole lot, just like that. And it's pretty like refreshing. And you blow into your nose. That's it.
Like this?
Yeah.
And blow. Nice.
How was that experience? How did it feel?
Feel like ground. Yeah. Feel like earthy.
How about internal state? Anything changed?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not
Cool.
yet. Yeah.
All right, man.
Maybe a little more grounded.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
So why don't we actually just ask you this question so people can get related to who you are, what you're about. What were some of the pivotal moments that happened in your childhood that makes you the man that you are, the person that you are?
It's a good way to start. I think for me, I don't know if I can attribute one or two different types of key events. To me, it's more of how I look at my past is more of this kind of continuum of different phases and of worldviews, maybe even. And I think when I was probably 8 to 13, very much taking my mother's and father's worldviews on, I think is more natural, until I hit about that 13, 14, where I really started to take some of the base foundation of which they shared and started to really go out on my own and question my reality. And I think for me that was, I don't know if there was a individual event that happened, just more of this culmination. And for me, the big thing that I took from my mother, was definitely the passion and the give it your all, extremism in what you believe and kind of go all in. And from my father, more of the grounded, ask questions around yourself and don't really be affected by your environment and try to take things as data and rather than taking things as personal, right? And that's something that for me is how I look at my life in these phases. And when I hit about 17, 16 maybe, when I started to really go to UCLA and started really going to university, and my mind was exposed to a lot of people that were more universal, different countries, different worldviews, and I think that was a very good exposure for me, because coming from South Orange County isn't really the biggest. It's a lot of shared
worldview.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's not go too fast. I want to kind of rewind just a little bit, because a lot of people grew up. So a lot of people started listening to their parents wholesale. They take their ideas in wholesale, right? I love this idea I actually got from Burning Man. Kids are essentially time capsules of their parents. And whatever is in the time capsules are the ideas, the memes that won between the parents. And then obviously, most people grew up taking the memes from the parents wholesale. Then starting at 12, 13, whatever, they start to develop their own identity. How did you, I guess, talking to you for a long time, I know you for a long time, you effectively run your life like mini experiments. right? There are different phases that you go through.
Yeah.
But then you're very conscientious about the choices that you make. Speak a little, because you skip actually quite a number of experiments you did growing up. So
Sure.
why don't you share a little bit so people know
Yeah.
and have some more context?
Yeah, man, it's hard. I'm trying to summarize that. It's challenging. I think there's, I really think, I think one thing comes to mind now after you kind of phrased it in that way, and probably a better way to answer your even original question. So I'll try to tie two and two together. So there was a time, I'm not sure if I've shared this with you in the past, might have, or at least it was a long time ago. There was in my freshman year, I was about 13, when I went to high school, and my 0 period English class, one of the first classes that I went to, it was set up in the sense where there was these pods of desks, like four, these little groups, and it was a science seating, so teachers sat, and it was me and these 3 girls, and over the couple months, I thought we were gaining a friendly relationship and just kind of more of a collegiate relationship. So I, at the time, I said, after class, hey, well, one day we should hang out and go see a movie or something like that. And I remember that I got the response of them pretty much laughing and saying, the only reason why we talked to you is because we want to cheat off of your answers, your tests. And I thought that was remarkable. And I thought that made a lot of sense to me, right? Yeah, it makes sense.
Oh, you didn't traumatize you, actually
logically
made sense.
Yeah, it made sense. And then I think I shared that with like a friend of mine at the time, and he took that a lot differently than I did, right? And was like, what is going on here, right? Like why would you kind of, why would you take that? And then my thought was, well, I don't really care about what people think or whatever the case is. I'm not, it is what it is. And he said, well, I bet you if you wanted to learn how to, let's say, become friends or learn how to play the social game and try to add value in maybe an artificial or just an active way versus being to myself and just focusing on me versus what's around me, I bet you could really figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, I probably could. I probably can, deduce how to interact. And at that point, I just was bored, so I said, fuck it, I'll just start to look around the world and start to try to analyze what's happening. So I would just literally look around the room, and I would see people speaking to each other in body language and what some people would do to one another, and I'd basically cohort people out from different types of personas and different types of ways they speak, what words they use, and what body language they present themselves, and ultimately everything they do, what they're representing. And I really just started to just take in all the data in that way and try to create a worldview or even a mental model. And then I started to try to A/B test that and replicate it consistently. So taking on this kind of chameleon, if you will, trying different things and seeing how I can, rather than just being me for the sake of it, if I wanted to, turn a switch. And then I wanted to go out and give an output to someone that will receive that in a certain way that is I'm intending for them to receive myself.
Social engineering.
Yeah, for sure.
12, 13 is the time you started to study this science of social engineering. And how did that impact your worldview going forward?
It changed significantly because when I started to try this, it was pretty exponential in regards to the different types of social engineering that I could get out to becoming. And then probably within a year, I'd say, of more actively looking and taking in and trying things, I was able to go into any different type of group and assimilate, from the jocks to the kind of the more popular, douchey crew to the academic crew, to the nerdy crew, to the musician crew. I mean, I really figured out a way, right? Even to the different kind of multicultural groups that were there, different sports groups. I mean, I was kind of all over the place. And I went from not really having an identity to being a part of 2 different sports groups and a dance team, to the APIB, which was like the advanced kind of crew, to running like nerdy game crews to music groups. So again, I kind of went around the horn, if you will. And I started to realize that I can manipulate a situation to really get a high probability of achieving an outcome by just understanding what people, how they receive things and how well they respond to certain stimulus. And I think that got me on a dangerous path, frankly.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, and so, fast forward maybe a few years, I became I think I did well socially in high school, and then when I went to university, I started to really use these skills, if you will, in my opinion, for the wrong purposes. And how I look at that is, for me personally, I look at the light, say yin and yang as an example, or light and dark, differently than some. Whereas I think some people look at good and evil as the same as light and dark, let's say. I don't, right? So I think there are tactics and intentions. So maybe social engineering or manipulating or going to someone and understanding how if you're very aggressive and you speak in this way that they may not respond well, versus sizing them up and literally judging someone and saying, how would I have to be to get the highest probability of a desired outcome, which I really think is manipulating and with an intention. Is some would say that's a very dark tactic, non-authentic tactic, or whatever. People can call that whatever you want. And I would use that, in my opinion, for I didn't understand what my purpose was and have a clear idea of what I wanted to do. So it was kind of a loose cannon. I'd just be doing this, I'd be manipulating, and kind of lost my own identity. Started to just kind of float around and just do things that I didn't realize why I was doing it, and just essentially assimilating and creating an identity of myself that wasn't really, I didn't have an intention for it. And then all of a sudden I have this image, which it took me a few years to figure out who I am and why I'm this way. And I don't think it was constructive. It wasn't building anything. It wasn't giving back to certain people. It was just kind of a very vain lifestyle that got caught up in the wrong crowd of people.
So you had basically a wake up moment.
Yeah, I did. Took me a few years.
Was it like a low point of your life? Was it, or just literally a random morning and woke up and then you're like,
it was a New Year's party, the 2010, 2011 New Year's, where I'm just kind of looking around, and it was just a fucking like a punch in the face. Like, what am I doing here? And by all means, in regards to what I had, and from a kind of social point of view, and the people, a lot of people will look at that as, this is a very successful party or successful event I'm being a part of. And I was like, what am I doing? What value am I giving back to people? And it kind of made me think about, the difference was the joy that I thought I was giving to myself, being a part of this decorate crew and people and kind of celebrities and high net worth individuals and just kind of people just with no real why are you here and what are you doing with your time, and switching that to what joy have I given people today.
So all in one day?
In one moment, yeah.
All in one moment?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a pivotal question.
I'm just kind of looking around and it's what am I, why am I here? It's I was talking to a bunch of people, and then I'm just kind of going to get water or whatever, and then I'm just so what do I do now? It was that conscious, manipulative, who do I want to go talk to? What am I? I'm very conscious, and it's I'm not just going to get a water and just standing by and just smiling and looking around, I'm literally thinking every minute, now what, I have, and it's always an outcome. There's always a desired outcome that I'm putting on every minute, and I'm trying to optimize to get that outcome. I want to go talk to this person. I want to get this person to be involved in this. I want to be able to, there's always something.
And you were 18 at the time?
Yeah, maybe 18 or 19.
How were you able to, so let me actually backpedal a little bit.
Yeah.
How were you able to maintain that high level of awareness? Because when things are good, it's easy to get drowned out by the noise, right? People are coming at you, people want something from you, you have something going on, you have a lot of relationships, just it's very noisy, right? But how were you able to maintain a high level of awareness such that you're actually watching everything going rather than just letting
I think
it
it's just
come to you?
practice. I think it comes down to that moment of just, hey, I bet you I can social engineer situations, and then doing it and just taking in more data and just it's kind of an addictive thing, right? It's like you start to do it and you start to think about it, and then it's just like walking. You get better at it over doing it. So I think my level of awareness just got better over the years, and how efficient I was at engineering situations to kind of get to an outcome just got better and better. So I don't know if it's not like, oh, I'm tired now, I'm going to stop doing that. It's just kind of an always on thing.
Right, but I don't mean external awareness of the outside. I'm
Yeah.
talking about internal awareness. Like, hey, this doesn't work for me anymore. Like,
Right.
how did you maintain that high level awareness?
I don't know if I always did, and I think that was the problem. So I think, giving like another example, I was always aware of like, okay, I want to go get this person. This person has, I don't know, a lot of influence, runs this business, has this, is a second degree relationship with so-and-so, which I could, has a lot of influence, or could be an investor or something like this, right? And I would just say, oh, I want to try to get that person in my circle so that if I ever needed something, if I ever wanted to tap into this, then I could. And it was essentially that all over the place. And it was trying to build this network for the what if moment, or like, oh, I could eventually tap into someone. Whatever, right? Could be athletes, could be, again, celebrities or investors or CEOs or someone that would, some sort of influence. And I would just try to collect this, like collectibles, for the purpose and just because of like one day. Why not?
It's an interesting game for you.
Yeah. And then I think, to your point of the question of the internal, that was the switch. Was like, why am I collecting these relationships? If you're looking at like a card game, why do I have all these? It's like you just kind of can get lost in the motion of just you're doing it. Okay, this person, I don't know this person, I'm gonna go introduce myself, I'm gonna try to add value to them, and just try to, hey, let's stay in touch, shoot you an email every month, but why? Again, why? And then all of a sudden you have 1,000 people that are in your sphere of influence, but what are you doing with that? What is the purpose of that? And I focused so much on just building up this, this kind of repertoire, but I never figured out a reason why I needed it. So that was really the switch, was, so why do I go talk to this person? Like, what am I, the outcome, from the outcome of getting them to be in my network, to switching that to what am I going to do with this person in my network? And I had no idea. And I think that comes with a lack of clarity of your purpose and not knowing what you're trying to do. I didn't have an idea. I think it was kind of this proxy mechanism to stay busy,
right, and
instead of asking yourself the tough questions of why are you alive? And that was really the switch, was I didn't know that. So I think so I don't think I had that high level of internal awareness, is what I'm saying. And that is what I try to now bring to the table, maybe call it the phase that I'm in now, is I try to check into this as much as I can. I don't have like a mechanism or a reminder on my calendar, or like rethink why you're alive. I think I just try to have more conversations like we're having in this moment, and try to have deeper level of discussions. And I think that's why I've always appreciated our friendship, is that there's value there, because by having more conscientious conversations, you're tapping into this muscle more, and you're able to kind of sharpen your worldview while learning things with one another.
So a lot of people, especially in their 20s, especially after college, actually,
they
ask this question, what is my purpose? And then they'll ask that question probably again after they get to their 40s, right? Their middle career somewhere.
I would say probably, right?
Right, probably. And then they'll ask that question again after they're about to retire. That's the typical times where they ask these questions. So do you think that purpose is like a one static answer, or do you think that is a continuously unfolding?
No, it's always unfolding, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, if you have a static purpose of it, you're in a dangerous place. I mean, how could you? Every day you're receiving more data, you're building a model, you're checking your assumptions, you're learning new things, hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah.
And if that's not changing your view on things, then there's a problem.
So tell us a little bit about this unfolding of your clarifying your own purpose.
Yeah, for sure.
What it was before at 18?
Yeah, probably when we started meeting, right? And
then,
it was this, I want to have global impact. What does that mean? Why do I want to have global impact? So I think it started off with like, I think I can have impact. I didn't even know what that word meant really. And then it started to go into, in the next evolution, maybe the second phase of this, I want to add value. It's kind of shifting the word impact to value, I think. Because to me, impact could be negative, could be positive, it just could be impactful.
Right.
It could be disruptive, that could be impactful potentially. But I think value is more of a clear word for me. And, value is really what I've been trying to get into. Okay, so how do I add as much value as possible? And then I started to think, okay, well, why do I want to add value to someone? What's the purpose of adding value to someone? And I think where that went to became digging deeper and saying, well, if I could make someone happier, if I can make someone suffer less in their day-to-day, then that's the type of value I want to bring to someone. Just having value in, I can bring value maybe to someone's career to make them an extra dollar, but if that dollar isn't necessarily, why do you want, money is a vehicle to achieve something. So going deeper, I got to the point where I am today is I want to reduce human suffering. And ultimately, that's the value, that's the impact, if you want to go up a little bit, to why I want to impact and add value to people's life, is so that I could make their life less, have less suffering in that, and to have them have a more joyful, fulfilled purpose.
Beautiful. Do you want to get something?
No, it's okay.
Well, first, I acknowledge you for having that clarity. It's a very noble purpose.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's a whole nother place we can go and say noble. We can say it's vain as well, selfish. I ultimately think it's selfish.
Okay, let's talk about that for a moment. Do you believe in altruism?
No.
No. Okay.
No,
so
I don't. I think ultimately why I'm choosing to reduce suffering is because that's going to make me think that to make me feel better. Giving back to someone makes me feel good. Doesn't make me feel bad.
Right.
If I felt bad for it, then I wouldn't do it. So,
right.
But look, I don't know if it's a zero-sum game. I don't know if it's, I feel good because I'm giving back, so I'm, shame on me. It's like, why not? Great.
Right.
It's a win-win.
Exactly.
I
think it's a philosophical discussion about this whole nature of altruism.
I'm with you.
I think it's kind of
it's
a stupid question, really, to me.
Right? Who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's about net, right? If the intention is to me, if I feel good doing this, who cares if what the come from is?
Yeah. Who cares if it's
I feel good?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
ultimately, I'm giving somebody else.
That's right.
Because of the actions that I take.
So call that whatever you want, altruism, non-altruism.
Right.
But that's great.
Yeah.
So that positive net is what we want, as much as possible.
Cool. Happy?
I'm okay, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got enough of that.
Okay. All right, great. Continue then. So then how do you, because you're also CEO of a company, right?
Yeah.
And then you have fiduciary responsibilities, you have, your responsibilities to the people in your life, really. Let's actually just be more generalized that way.
Sure.
When it comes to reducing suffering, do you, let's see if I can ask this question in a way that's productive. Is it other people first and then you, or you first and then other people? And let me actually unpack that.
There's a balance.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But if you want to unpack it, you can.
I want to unpack it a little bit. Because for the people that have quote unquote noble, right, purposes in life, they're pitfall of that. They want to give so much, but yet they have nothing else left for themselves. So they usually sacrifice their health, usually sacrifice their sleep, usually sacrifice their nutrition or whatever.
Yeah, I see it all the time.
And all the time. And then that's a very unsustainable way to do that.
Right.
But flip it around, if someone is always
focusing,
let me focus on me.
Right.
And then it's about,
well, I think, this is what I'm good at. It's like, what's the outcome? And how do you engineer it backwards? Ultimately, if you're trying to focus on giving back, because that's what makes you feel good, then I would say, what is the most effective and efficient way for you to try to maximize your ability to give back? So I think it's, you start with give back and then you optimize your tactics. And you should be thinking about maximizing value over your lifetime. And that's, to do that, you have to have a sustained throughput. You can't have crashes, you can't have lack of energy, you can't have things come up, and you have to look at it over a longer lens of time, because ultimately value is over a period of time. You could have 1 year of a lot of value, but then if the rest of your life you're not adding value, then the lifetime value of what you've done is less than someone who had a more sustained, let's say. So I think it's ultimately, what's it going to take to maximize it? And I have not seen any individual that focuses and has a very value-driven individual that just focuses on short-term gains or getting through this crunches. So to get it back into what your example, people that don't take care of their health, people who don't make sure they're mentally healthy, people who don't spend enough time with their own personal self and their responsibilities, whether it be family or whether it be personal health or personal mental health, spiritual health, then you are going to be affected in the longer term. So it's that right balance, because then again, I see a lot of people too, on the other end, I see both sides. People that just focus all day on the output and they're all behind on work, and you continue to be in this rat race forever, and you're never able to just, one more deadline, one more this, get this out, and you're in that rut for 10 years. And then there's people on the other side who just try to just focus on philosophical, I'm gonna build my base up, and I'm gonna keep working on myself, and I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready to go and start a business. I'm not ready to become a founder. I got it, this, and that. You're never ready.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually the thing to remember, because as I'm academically trained.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you know me well enough.
Yeah.
My tendency is to want to line up everything, all the ducks in a row.
Yeah, it is.
And then I'll do something, but it never happens.
That's right.
Even if it happens, it only happens for a nanosecond, and all the ducks would be off.
And to use the framework, it's, well, there's a certain level of, call it, everyone's different how they learn. For you, you're definitely more of the academical. You get a lot of value in preparation, right? And I necessarily am not that way. But there's value in the preparation. There's value of trying something, failing, learning from it, trying it again. And I'm on that camp pretty aggressively. So I think everyone's different. And I think, if I never prepare, if I never learn, if I never take a step back and I look at other things, then I think that's a pitfall for me. And I think for you, you can get,
analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get down to tactical, because
Yeah.
I don't want to just have a philosophical conversation and people are inspired by your narrative, but I also want people to not only get inspired, but can learn the specific tactics that you do to strike that balance, right? That harmony. So what are some of the disciplines that you have, or the habits that you have, as a way to both do and also think? Like set up your day for sustainable output, throughput that you
I think it's about creating habits.
Okay.
And it's about discipline. That's the underlying tactics that I use to go about everything that I do. And you have to choose a couple things: focus, discipline, habits, right? Those are the things that I really probably best describe my tactics and how I approach my life. So what's the focus? I only focus on a few things. For me, health is one of them. So I unpack health, which with its it being energy, being your diet, being your physical activity, your spiritual, mental health, all of that I kind of put into the bucket. And tactic that I do for that is waking up at the same time every day early, having a routine, finding something, a physical activity that you can build skills upon. So not just, I'm going to run today and bike today and climb today and do a class today, because you're not really building skill sets. I like to be able to focus on something that I could build and be competitive with, which is kind of killing two birds with one stone. Because you can go do something active every day, but if you're not bettering yourself in something, then you kind of lose something, in my opinion. So personally, I've been doing CrossFit, Olympic lifting as my focus.
Why did you pick that? Because you have many options.
Yeah,
Why did you pick
well,
that one
I think
specifically?
inherently I like those two, because, especially the CrossFit side, because it brings in a lot of variety already, and it's very measurable, it's very competitive, it's very intense. So workouts are measurable, it's certain weight, certain time, certain number of reps that you have to do that you can compare yourself against other people, and then you can track your progress. So it's very ROI driven and it's measurable. And then if you're able to measure how your physical output is, then you'll take that habit and it will correlate into everything else that you do. So there's these added benefits of not just, kind of think of it like if health is a vertical pillar, the intensity and the measure everything you do is a horizontal tenet that will go across other things like my professional life. So if I'm honing in on the discipline, and I'm honing in on the measurability and the intensity, then when I go and I finish my morning routine and I go to the professional life, and I've already sharpened those skills, and I'm going to want to reuse that and measure my own self and work, and measure my teams in that way, and measure our output, and measure our mission, and to be able to have the intensity and the wherewithal to do what's necessary, and to be able to use that as a competitive edge in the marketplace against your competition. And to use that as a tool to inspire others is something that I also get out of it. So I can go and do some yoga, which I love, but something that there's all kinds of different yoga. But more of the traditional, more meditative, slower paced yoga, whereas that's going to give you a lot of things more like mindfulness and more things like mobility, which is very important. It's part of my life as well, but to me, that's less valuable or less attributable also into your work life and other things. For me, the competitiveness, the intensity, and the measurability that you get from CrossFit is very valuable in a professional career.
What other tactics? What other disciplines do you have?
So I like to minimize the amount of decisions that I make every day. So I call that decision fatigue. I've had people call me an asshole for even talking about the concept of decision fatigue. I find it funny, but it's true, right? When you make a lot of decisions, micro decisions, I've seen how that has added tax to my life, and that's something that drags down my energy levels, which is very important to me. So the decision fatigue is, what am I going to eat today? What am I going to wear today? Where am I going to go for lunch is when I see all the time with people. And so I don't really care about that. For me, I look at food as fuel. I look at what I'm wearing to be practical, to be comfortable, to just have that be a decision that I don't want to think about what I'm wearing or what I'm eating or where I'm going. And to have that be automated is very important. So I subscribe to meal plans, whether it be a service or finding someone that you can have, or cooking for yourself, or doing that on Sunday, or subscribing to a service. There's all kinds of ways to do that. Having it delivered to the office. I'm looking at it right now of my food in my refrigerator. That's a great tactic, to just kind of focus on wearing less things. And I buy in bulk, and if I enjoy a t-shirt, and I'll just buy 10 of them, and I don't want to have the 100 different things that I'm wearing and focusing on that, because what value am I generating from that? I don't see any incremental value of focusing on fashion. To me is a very, very vain concept.
Oh, interesting. I know that you've been trying to tell me about getting my own food, the prep meal service for a long time.
Yeah.
And for a long time I kept saying no, because various reason, the cost, the time,
Takes
the
all the
inconvenience,
excuses,
whatever. And I tried it, and holy crap, it's such such a gift, it's such a blessing.
Yeah.
Because anytime that I want
glad.
it is right there. I don't need to like.
You're hungry, then you just hear it.
Right, I'm hungry. Within 3 minutes, I have my food.
You have an extra hour back.
Right now, is it maximized in terms of nutrition, in terms of taste?
Yeah.
It's not. It's not maximized. However, it's optimized.
Right.
Because if I need it, it's right there.
Well, I think maximize is a. I don't know if I agree with you, because it's, what are you maximizing?
Right.
It comes down to, how do you look at what is your purpose of food? If you're maximizing how tasty it is, and when you're chewing, your
the mouth pleasure.
your mouth. Okay, if you want to optimize the mouth pleasure, yeah, maybe not. Right.
Yeah.
So you
maximizing.
Right. I mean, actually people that are driving an hour to go to lunch to some random ass place, in LA, far away, sitting in traffic to go eat something for an hour, having a food coma, driving back another hour. It's like 3 hours in a coma later. But you got that mouth pleasure.
Is it worth it? Right.
Well, I mean, it's up to the individual,
Right.
not to me.
Yeah, same here. So after, what was that celebrity chef who committed suicide? He had a show. Path Unknown, Place Unknown.
Bourdain.
Right. So after his passing, I
Yeah.
started watching his show just
Right.
as a way to like, hey, what makes this guy special?
Right.
I was inspired by him. But as a result of that, I also drove an hour just to try out some of the restaurant.
Right.
And I realized the payoff, the mouth pleasure, didn't warrant whatever time, effort.
And I think there's a time and place for everything. I mean, special occasions and experience, you're with certain kind of people, that's one thing. The experience with people around something that it versus a routine is very different. So,
Yeah. Any other disciplines that you wanted to share? That gave you a really high ROI for the level of throughput. Just use your word.
yeah. I think making sure you look at how you're spending your time has been something that I've done from the very beginning. And it's a funny one, because frankly, when you ask me these questions, it's not easy for me to. The most impactful, highest ROI habits that I think I have are so ingrained in me that it's just like air, right? Like for me, the food concept is so just, I forget about it. It's like I forget that now everyone does that, right? And like the same thing with the health thing. So some of these things that I do are just so common, like putting on your underwear or putting on socks. It's like I don't think about it, and it's just important. So that's why I kind of paused. But I would say the time thing is one of those where I put everything in my calendar, and I make everything measurable, so that on a weekly level, usually on Sundays, I'll look at my last week and I'll see how I spent my time, and I'll see how that attributes to what I'm trying to get done, and then I will try to better plan my following week and I probably remove so many meetings and distractions in an upcoming week that have just been slotted just because it was slotted 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I'm like, is this important for me to do? Either move those or cancel those, or adding in new things that come about so that I can really plan on a week-to-week level versus being so reactive on a daily or even hourly level of what I gotta do, and have that discipline to be thinking about those intentions. So be more purpose-driven and thoughtful regarding how you're spending your time on a weekly level, and looking and doing a little bit of a retrospective on how your last week went, and then planning forward. And that's something that I've done for probably 10 years. And one of the things that I've always found interesting with people, not really in my circle, but 10 years ago when I was starting to do this, and when I started to ask around, and everyone has the intention, or not everyone, but most people trying to be, let's call it successful. They want to have financial security. They want whatever goals they have.
Some intentions they have.
Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. Oh, I want to be rich. I want to have a lot of money. I want to have a company. I want to be an influencer. I want to have social media followers. This crazy shit. And then, okay, let's just fancy them for a second. and I'll say, so how did you spend your day yesterday? And they'll be like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we'll just break it down. What time did you wake up? Well, I woke up at 9 and I went to breakfast, drove somewhere for some food, and then I came back. I watched some TV, and then I went to work from my shift from 10 to 5, and whatever it is, whatever their day job is. And then I came home, and then I played some games, and then I went on social media, and then I went and I met up with a friend, then I went to happy hour, and it's like, and then I go to bed late. And it's like, so what did you do in that day to go against everything you said with what your goals are? And it's funny because it's so discrepant, and it's sad. Because it's delusional. I mean, let's just take this example of trying to become a founder of a company. Let's just say that's a goal.
Yeah.
And then
it's an American dream.
And right.
Yeah.
I guess so. And then you ask someone how I spent their time, and it's very sad, because
what makes it sad?
Because they don't have the consciousness to understand that they're not doing anything towards those goals, and they'll have this goal for 30 years. And I see people in their 40s and 50s, they just become very bitter of like, what did I do with my life? It's like, well, you just had a day that I just described, right? A more practical example of that is I woke up at 5 a.m. and I spent an hour to work out. And then I got to work, I figured out a job that I can do to pay the bills from 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. until 4 or 5. And then I figured out a way to maintain my energy levels by being healthy and eating the right way. And then I started my second shift from 5 to 10 or 11, my second 7 or 8 hours a day, into something that's very deliberate towards building towards our dreams. You're not hanging, you're not going to happy hour, you're not playing video games, you're not on Facebook for an hour, you're not driving around and get lunch. These things add up. And you have an entire second part of your day that you can be really building towards your vision. And this makes a difference. How you're spending your weekend time is very important. It just takes time. It takes 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week to be able to do any of what most people have as a goal. And they don't spend the time to do it. And it's discrepant. And then they get sad. And then they suffer to get to the point of the mission that we're discussing. They suffer. They add suffering to their life because they get upset. Oh, I'm not making progress. Oh, I'm not, 5 years goes by, and then they wonder what they're doing, and they get these crises, and they suffer, and it's sad to see them suffer. And it's just because they're wasted. They're throwing away their time. They're not mismanaging it.
Yeah, I feel you. I also feel them, right?
Yeah, I do. I want the best for them, and it's either you need, my opinion is you either need to reorient yourself and come to reality that you don't want to start a company. You're just saying this because it's a vain. It's this. Oh, I want to be successful because it's just been ingrained in you in this Western society. Let it go. What you're saying is you want to be on Facebook. You want to go have mouth pleasure. You want to play video games, and you want to be working a mindless job. That's fine. If that's what you just don't be discrepant. Own up to it and say, this is what I want to do in my time. Then great, good for you. You need to align your tactics with your intentions, and that's the point. Just have the conscientious to understand this is what you want to do. You want to go party every night? Okay, it's up to you if that's how you want to spend your time. But don't lie to yourself. That's all you have is your integrity with yourself.
I mean, what you just said it's true. Have integrity with yourself. Most first and foremost.
And yes, and that's the problem is that most people. And look, it's not because they're not trying to. It's because they're not aware. It's a simple exercise. Ask someone what they want, what their intention is, what their goals are, what your career, whatever, and then ask someone for the time yesterday, and then do the math and plot it. How much time did you spend on this? It's unbelievable. There's a lot of time in the day.
For sure. If you look at, so one of the easiest way to see what people are truly committed to
Right.
is look at their time,
Yes.
their calendar, and
Yeah.
also look at their spending habits, their credit card statement.
For sure.
Because that's what we have.
That's right.
The limited resource that we have.
Right. You can get more complex and get into energy.
Right.
But yeah, that's
roughly
that's
speaking,
that's an easier framework.
Energy you can see.
Yeah, that's right. That's an easier framework.
Okay, so let me actually ask this a separate question.
Sure.
Because you hang around with a lot of achievement-oriented people.
Yeah.
Right? Do you feel that actually achieving your goals makes one more happy? Or, because there's a phrase that sometimes more grief is caused by answered prayers than unanswered ones. Right? Sometimes you're grasping the goal so tightly
Yes.
that you don't achieve it. Oh shit, my life is shit because I didn't achieve
Yeah.
being a founder or whatever.
For sure. For sure. I'll give you a concrete example.
Okay.
When I was I had a financial goal when I was 16, 15, whatever, that I hit when I was 22. And when I hit it, it was the most disappointing thing I've ever done.
So say more about that. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was just this, it was a vanity metric. It was a vanity goal, right? It was, yeah, I want this, and to me, this is what success can look like. And it just was nothing of that. It was such a letdown. And it was like, again, to the why do you want to have these series of numbers in your bank account? Okay, is it for security? Is it for this? But ultimately, that's not what I optimized for. Again, what I always had deep inside was, at the time when I was 21 or 2, it still was this exponential impact, and then I went to the value, and then I went into the suffering, right, to reduce suffering, which is where I'm at today. And that goal did not achieve anything directly correlated to reducing suffering.
There is no bridge.
There wasn't. I mean, like, you could take some assets to help you get there. Don't get me wrong, but that is a proxy, and it wasn't activated. It was just, again, it was like the kind of the same idea of getting to have someone in your network. But if you're not activating, you're not realizing any value. What does it matter? You can know the most important, influential person in the world, but if you're not generating any value from that, it's the worst.
You have a lot of cards stacked for you.
It's
what are you going to use
It's
it
actually
for?
the worst.
Right.
It's the worst feeling in the world.
Say more about that. What was it the worst?
It's just the worst because it's better to have no assets, or it's like you have all this potential. It's unrealized. That's the point. You realize you have these assets and these potentials, and unrealizing it, to me personally, it's the worst. The worst feeling.
It's one thing to strive for something.
Right.
Right. There's a hope.
Right.
Once I get it, then
Right.
I'll be able to activate it.
That's
But
right.
now that you have it,
That's right.
then it's not
So
activated.
it's vanity. It's, again, you got to get to understanding what you're really trying to do. And it's hard. Don't get me wrong. You can always go why. Figure out what you want and ask 5 whys. Oh, I want to make this. Why? Because of, okay, why? Just go deep as you can. And then try to stay there. And there's always other levels. There's always deeper levels, and there's always unpacking levels, and you're getting clarity. But that's the best thing you can do, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's what makes life beautiful. Because
Yeah.
ultimately, once you figure out, quote unquote, the answer, you have everything that you need.
Yeah.
There's no more questions.
Right.
It's boring.
Yep.
Why would you want a life with no questions?
Yep.
To me, I'm big on questions. I'm so curious about what's the next level.
Yep.
So on that note, what kind of let's actually ask a broader question, because you not only do it personally, you also have a circle of people around you. You also have staff or employees who works for you.
Yeah. By the way,
Social structure.
By the way, the friend question I think you should ask, because I have a good one on that one. I think
The
friendship question.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you.
Okay, cool.
Oh, what makes you best friend your best friend?
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah. Okay.
cool.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Coming back to the question.
Yeah.
So you're not just responsible for yourself. You're
Right.
responsible for your family, right? You're responsible for your friends. You're responsible for your employees. Well, let's start off with this question: what makes your best friends your best friends?
So, to me, what I appreciate the most with friends is, number one, the level of communication. So, when you're talking about any concept, how deep can you go and how fast how fast can you get to that level? So when you're getting into a philosophical question and you're having a conversation of value, let's say, ultimately, like the framework is, if we have a half an hour discussion, if we spend a half an hour together, in leaving that discussion, what was the net value that we generated? Can we take anything, because there are any breakthroughs or discoveries that you can take to add on to yourself, to change your worldviews or to add value to a new tactic or a new question to ask yourself, or anything that can add value to the way that you interpret the world from both sides, right? Again, it's not just, it's the net on both sides. So if it's just a one directional coaching, it's like, there's some benefit there, but if we can bounce ideas off each other and get to that point of net value add, then that's very impactful for me, and I really appreciate that. And then the question is how fast can you get there? Because some people can spend 10 hours and come up with one discovery, but how deep can you get the shared understanding, the verbiage, when you're talking about something, and be able to link things in the past, and the attention to detail when you're talking about things that's very fleeting or very like woo-woo, right? And it's like, can you grasp these concepts? Can you create these archetypes and these symbolisms, and can you have a shared consciousness? How quickly can you get there? And how quickly can you generate and challenge each other and add value to these questions? To me, that's where I look at my greatest friendships. It comes from that.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why I started this podcast.
Yeah,
because I enjoy this type of conversations.
That's great.
And I like long for them, and not everyone is ready to dance with me in this way. So
especially you.
Appreciate
No, I agree.
Especially me, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so socially speaking, though, do you have, I suppose, different pockets of friends, or do they all know each other, or do they all complement each other?
I think there's pockets, but it's not intended to be like compartmentalizing. I think it just happens, right? I would say, I'll have to be honest, I mean, I've had different friends over the years, especially, and I think as most relationships happen, some relationships grow apart. And just, there's different values you take on, there's different intentions, there's different goals, and that's fine. And for me, I think some people have different opinions here. Some people I've seen judge this in certain ways, and but if you're having a friendship for your childhood friendship or 10 years ago best friend or whatever, and it just starts to go another way, and they will bring on different habits, and they'll do different things, and your values start to tear apart. There's some level of repair, or some level of effort you want to put into that. But for me, I'm not someone who's gonna throw the kitchen sink at trying to rehabilitate a relationship if it's not organic anymore, if it's not authentic, and you have to do all this work and there's no net benefit. So I think that's what kind of happens with these social circles, is that some people will grow away from each other, and that's fine. I don't have any issue with that personally. I wish the best for them people, but I don't continue to bring people through. It's part of life. There's different periods of times in which you'll go through, and I've had a lot of close friends over the years, and they're in different places and I'm in different places, and we may stay in touch once a year or something like that, and that's great, and that's more of a kind of a touching base. But I don't go out of my way to spend time into that if I don't think there's mutual value generation, to the same point of how I defined my closest friends.
Okay, so how do you translate this to running a company? Because a lot of people are very purposeful in their personal life, and they want to bring this into their business life, and you're very intentional about bringing this purposefulness into the business. Can you kind of break it down for the people who are listening to this? How do you translate this?
It's change over stages too.
Okay.
Right. When you're bringing in your founding team members, to when you're getting to 20 people, to 50. To 100.
So break it down for us.
To 150. I think it's all very different. Plus, right, and growing more than that. And in the very early days, at least how we went about it, it was finding people that have very strong shared sense of values and mission, and very much a shared worldview. And there's benefits to that, where it's very quickly to make decisions, that you're always on the same page, there's no dilution in communication, and it becomes a very powerful, small elite SEAL team that can generate something that is very impactful. And that throughput is very high. Now, in my personal opinion, I've seen, at least even ourselves, our ability with 8 to 15 people, the throughput that you can generate just from the lack of dilution and just a very shared, let's say, a lack of diverse worldviews in this instance, can be very effective in delivering a very simple, focused mission. And at least in our company, I saw that throughput of that small team be able to probably generate more throughput than when we got to 40 or 50 even. But the investment to go there was to reorient ourselves and to create a different foundation, whereas we could take on 10x the customer base. So that group of 8 to 15 may be the most effective at delivering. This is compartmentalize it to say, we use customers as an example. Right. 25 enterprise customers, it started to break down when we got to say 50. So we had to be a little bit less efficient on the unit economics if we wanted to get to 100. So it's an investment for the future. So that's kind of how I saw our company grow in these tranches, and it becomes very different operational. You're bringing in middle management, you're bringing in more process, you're bringing in different diverse views, different approaches, and that's something that we did, and it was a big learning experience for me, because I go from this very intense, everyone thinks about the world in the same way, to how you scale a business. You need to bring in diversity, you need to bring in different types of worldviews, and you need to have that be less, it's more about risk management as you grow and as you get more customers and how you bring in more process. And so the culture, I had to start to find cultural champions and leaders that still share a common foundation of values and missions and the universe. So say there's 10 core ways you look at the world, rather than having a 10 out of 10, what are the real core 5? What are the things that we always want to have? And then have each leader bring in additional couple extra points that they localize for maybe engineering
their own flavor.
Sales. Correct, their own flavor. So rather than making it so much of a cesspool of thinking, you need to have still a common ground, so you don't have just a non-culture. But you need to make the tough decisions and what you're really willing to say, this is what we stand for. And now I'd say it gets to even less, from 10 to 5 to 3, and maybe, and then, so I think that's how you scale. And that's kind of where I personally can say at least VideoAmp has gone.
Can you tell us a little bit about your personal kind of growth process when you're scaling the company? Did you have to grow personally?
Yeah, and it was always delayed.
Say more about that.
Yeah, I think I've heard this, I've had people tell me these things, but it just didn't click. It just always was 3 or 6 months later until I realized the stage that we were in. So the company's been growing pretty quickly, thankfully, and faster than I realized. So that's kind of where it is. And then all of a sudden things are going great, and then just like 1 week, things are not, and things are dropping, and the more clients that we can support, and the assumptions of the unit economics of one pod of this can support 3 customers, all of a sudden now can't anymore because the customer base is very different, and things like that just happens, and it's hard to stay ahead of everything. So there's been some reactive phases, whereas I need to look at the data and reflect what's my role in the organization for. I can't dive in and solve all these problems. I can't be in every client meeting. I can't make every product decision. And those are the things that you learn, that you have to figure out when's the right time to scale, when's the right time to give more control and to give more ownership to other people in the company, and what are the things that you need to keep still, what decisions do you have to make, and then what decisions can you empower others to make. And those are the things that you have to check in on. And I don't think I've made all the right calls over the years. I think it's developed, and I've tried to look at certain things and I make bets, and maybe sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and you have to refactor, and you just look at the data, and you got to be open-minded. Look at the right KPIs in the company. What are the important metrics you want to look at, see how they're trending, have an open conversation about why they're not, and reassess. Maybe I should have made those product decisions. Maybe I should have longer time decided the roadmap, but I should have given up sales meetings earlier, so it wasn't a bottleneck there. Or maybe we should have figured out a way to change our client services versus this and that, you know.
So, okay, so you said a lot of terminologies, right? So that maybe not everyone would be able to understand that. Can you concretize that just a little bit? Just demonstrate one example of where you had to shift your mindset about, for example, control, right? As the CEO of a company, this is your baby. As this is, you had to, well, let go of some control, whether it be product decisions or
look,
sales
I think
whatever.
the product one's easy to give an example. So from, call it the beginning, phase one, whereas you're literally in a room and you're making one main product with a couple main experiences and screens, where you're deciding how the user interacts and what buttons you press and the screen flow. If you press this button, then you go here in the software, and then you press this button and you go here in the software, and no, let's answer these questions. Let's make a graph look like a bar chart versus this line graph, have this kind of experience, these kind of, right, even down to the colors. To then maybe a phase two of like, okay, I don't need to decide the color scheme anymore. I can empower a designer to make that call and give them the values or her the values in regards to what we want, and then to be empowered to do that, to not get in the way. To getting to the next stage of saying, okay, now you have multiple products, so you need to talk about the right questions these products need to answer, and you can't even wireframe it. You can't talk about the screens. You need to say, in this quarter, we need to have these products, or these features rather, do this. So I want a better experience to manage permissions for enterprise software, and it should look like this. And these features should have the ability to have read only here, to have write only here, to be able to have enterprise control, so they can't see this, they can see this screen from different levels of the organization, as an example, and it should answer these questions. So creating use cases and user stories in regards to what features they should ask, as call it a phase two, versus actually wireframing out exactly the thing.
Focus on the forest rather than specific trees.
Right. And then you go to the phase three, whereas now you have to just talk about the product and say, hey, in these sprint or in this quarter, the product needs to be able to support 100 customers, 10 times the amount of customers, that needs to be able to add more value in saving our clients money, for example. So, and then having the team be able to figure out which features, and then what features, what questions those features have to answer and what they do, and then the wireframing and the color palette, to then even going further, talking about the entire portfolio from a revenue perspective. So this is an example of going from making a decision of the color all the way to a company goal, and empowering an SVP to a VP to a director to a manager to the team to make those individualized decisions.
So let me actually ask a more of an internal game question.
Sure.
Because you're a very hands-on CEO. You can get down to the trenches with the guys easily, right? With the colors and the designers and all that, with the specific engineering choices and all that, right? So my guess would be, how do you cultivate this trust in your team? Because you may be able to say to yourself, like, hey, I could have done that even better. Like,
all the time.
Why did you make that shit choice?
All the time.
Right. So then, but part of your mental game that needs to be changed is, well, then I delegated, I entrusted them. So then, challenging.
So that's exactly, that's, to go back to your question, like 2 or 3 questions ago, that's exactly the challenge that I'm saying is hard to do. You never know at which point you want to delegate and hold them accountable versus saying, I want to make the... So let me answer your question with a question. And there's no one size fit all, so don't ask. It's just you have to every time try. And there's no framework that I've come across to solve this. But when anything comes up, you have to make a decision. Either entrust my team, give them as much context and set up what success looks like, and let them go out and do that, when you may have a probability of what that's going to look like and if it's going to be successful or failure, versus saying, I'm going to have to make the call and do it my way versus do it their way. And the there's a lot of pros and cons, but simply said, let's say the pro of making your own call may be that you have a higher chance of success in that individual one-time discovery. This feature may be better.
This particular functionality.
This particular function, maybe. Yeah. If you truly are more qualified, right? Versus letting your team take a stab at it and let's just say you have, as an individual, as a founder CEO, you may have 90% because you know the customer better, you've been doing this longer or whatever, versus your team has a 65% chance of success for this individual function. That 65%, if you continue to make your own calls, your team will never be able to learn from their own mistakes and reorient that, which is very powerful. So maybe that 65% goes to failure. You saw that, you could have stopped it, but you decided not to, so that that team can learn, and then the next time it goes to 70 or 75%. And you have the right framework and measurement of success and accountability, where you're checking in on a weekly basis and say, well, what happened here, right? What did you learn from this? How do you make this better? And you have to hold them accountable to that process. And sometimes there are decisions where are too risky, that are how do you make a call? Because the benefit of your team learning from a very big fuck up is very valuable if they learn from it.
Yeah, it's not a fuck up and they learn something from it.
Well, right, but what are lethal fuck ups and what are fuck ups that you can take a hit from? And what's that continuum? And every single decision you make is different. And then you don't even know what can be lethal. Something that you thought wouldn't be lethal. Oh, they can screw up. Some other thing that you didn't know could happen, and it could be a lethal fuck up. So you have to make a gut check with all the data you have as a risk call to say long term versus we can't afford to do this. And that's the bit, in my opinion, that's a very large burden on any leader, is you have to know when to entrust your team and when you make the call. Because you can't always make the call, and sometimes you have to be able, there's too much on the line to have it be a learning exercise.
Well, so one of the angel investors that I talked to, he's a super angel, and he recommends to all entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs to think probabilistically. And I think everything you just said actually demonstrated really well. 65% chance of winning, 35% and etc. So how does one go about training oneself to think probabilistically?
Well, it's just trial and error yourself. Like 90 versus 65, how do you know off the right percentages versus it being, you can go other way. I've seen other people that think they're at 90 and they're really at 40 and their team's at 70, but then they have all this ego in the way, or they think they're making the right call, and it's like, no, you're not even know what you're talking about. And you see that, and you have teams everywhere in the world where their manager, they don't respect the manager, they don't make the right calls, they don't believe in it. The CEO gets so far removed from what's actually, in reality of what actually is going on in the business. And I've seen, and you get so much complaints about that.
Okay, so let's actually unpack that just a little bit.
So it just depends. But before that, the probability is you have to just have self-awareness, and you have to let your ego go away, and you have to looking at the 100 decisions that happened in the last 2 weeks and make a model. And every day, orient yourself. It's just risk management. It's trial and error.
How do you not let your ego get in the way? Because you're obviously a very confident person. You believe in yourself. You believe in the people that you have surrounded yourself with.
It's easy. It's very easy.
So say more about it, because it's not easy.
It's very easy.
Okay,
you need to set up measurable goals, and you A/B test. Bottom line, what does success look like?
That's it.
You draw it out, you write it down, you try it 2 ways, you come back and you see what worked better. That's it. If your ego is more successful every time, then great. Let your ego get in the way. Who cares if you're egotistical, if you're driving those values and you're adding more value to the customer? What's your goal? And optimize the input. It's set the output, optimize the input.
Okay, so let's talk about perhaps maybe not in the business sense, maybe on the personal sense, right? When you deal with your loved ones, your wife, your parents, right? These are, people say you think you're enlightened and spend a weekend with your parents, right? As an example. How do you make sure that you personally, your ego is not engaged when you're especially interacting with people that, it's really important for you?
Well, so, when I say let your ego get in the way, what I'm really more saying is let the best tactic win.
I understand that.
Right. So, and what I'm referring to ego is that, like, your opinions, right? When people say your ego's getting in the way is when you're truly are optimizing for your personal self-gratitude over the best outcome. That's how I see it.
I see.
So the point is the fact of measuring an output and being and just stating and being measurable driven.
I see.
Is how you get that out, because ego gets in the way when you make a decision that truly isn't the best outcome.
I see.
For some other alternative reason, you feel good.
I see. Got
so
it.
if it's not your idea and it's someone else's idea, but it achieves the better desired outcome, then go with that input.
I see. So let me make sure I understand what you say. So basically, you said you just run experiments, have a clear, defined outcome that you're looking for.
Correct.
And then option A, option B.
Correct.
Whichever, whether it's coming from your selfish intentions or other people's input or whatever.
Right.
Whatever hit that the outcome that you're looking for, that is the right way.
Focus
to do
on the output, not the input, and do that. And that's the point. People, when ego gets in the way, you're bringing some of the input into the formula. Well, this was my input, so even though it was a less of an output, I'm gonna still choose mine because it's my idea.
Right.
Because this is how I feel, or this is because it makes me feel better. Like, who cares?
Interesting.
It just depends if someone's focusing on the input or the output, and do you have a clear, defined, desired outcome that you're trying to achieve? So it's a mindset. Do you go into situations thinking about the tactics or the outcome? Do you say, oh, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to go and spend more time with my family, for an example, right? Why do you want to spend more time with your family? That is so I'm gonna come to work, I'm gonna leave work an hour early today to spend 2 extra hours with my family, or whatever. 2 extra hours. Leave work 2 hours to get 2 hours. That's a tactic.
Got it.
If your family tells you, come, leave work, come early, spend more time with me, and you go, I gotta spend more time with my family, that is a tactic. That's an input.
Right.
What are they trying to deliver? You're trying to get, and I'm going to give an example.
Sure.
What I think is very common. People think about time as time's an input. The output is relatedness. It's experiences. It's a shared spending quality, bonding real time, mindfulness with your family. Something that you can really, a special. There's always those dinners where you're just quiet and no one's talking and you're just eating, and you go and someone's on their phone and you're watching TV. It's like you left work 2 hours early. For what did you get out of that? If anything, that's a negative. Like, the more time you spend with people that isn't really valuable and isn't really impactful or deliberate, is not only not adding the value you want, but could be seen as a negative.
Right. You're
getting desensitized. Versus, I'm going to spend every minute very deliberate, and I'm going to be present. And I'm not going to be on my phone. I'm not going to be taking a call. And when I'm home, I'm home. And I'm going to give it my all. And I've seen very successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, women and men that are very busy and are able to say no to the easy inputs, and are saying, but look, maybe I'm just using time as an example, and this is not always the way it is, but it's an easy one, in my opinion, to articulate. I'm gonna stay late Friday night to get out all the stuff done because I know it's gonna pop up on, say, Saturday or Sunday, or I'm gonna come to work early on a Saturday so I can spend the second half of Saturday and all day Sunday, as an example, or I'm gonna do a work trip that I get home late Saturday so I can be, home on Sunday, versus spending Saturday and Sunday and you go to your kid's game and you're on the phone, you're not really watching, you're not engaging, you're not coaching, or you get emails coming and you gotta take fires out, you're leaving. That is, you're there, but are you really there?
Right. You're there, you're not there.
You're not there, right? So to me, I'd rather spend 5 hours of quality, like you remember that weekend.
Yeah.
You remember that weekend and there was an desired outcome of building a bond, building a relationship, learning together, having an experience together, something that's memorable that you hold dearly to yourself, versus having 10 hours of just a mindless activity or not really truly being present.
What are some of the hacks or the tips to really help, let's use that family as an example, to help make those shared moments memorable with their spouse, with their children?
It's again, it's the same thing as, what are you trying to do with your family? Have a conversation with your significant other and understand what you guys are trying to do. You go home and you put on Netflix for 3 hours, 4 hours, okay? If that's the intention, is to sit physically next to each other and to not speak to each other and to be silent and to just be watching a television screen without moving and just ingesting information. If that's your outcome and that's how you want a relationship, great. Define that and go spend all the time watching TV together.
I got you.
If your desired outcome is, I want to have a meaningful spiritual relationship, I want to be able to build something together, I want to give back, I want to give charity to someone, I want to be physically, healthy with you, I want to be healthy together, I want to grow each other, I want to build something, either a business or charity or a foundation together, I want to teach children together. What is the purpose of your family time? Again, it's the output. Then optimize to that same concept.
Do you and your spouse have a regular conversation about this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Let's say monthly, weekly, quarterly, or is it just kind of happens?
It happens. It's a mindset, right? It's not a scheduled routine. It's the 28th. Let's talk about it. No. Not at all.
Not at all.
You don't want to make it transactional and business oriented, but you want to always be there, and you want to ask yourself, how are you spending your time? And you got to just, again, it comes to the same part with with your friends and how you value your friendships. How fast can you get to that shared understanding, and how quickly can you get to be mutually adding value together? If you gotta sit down for 10 hours and say, okay, let's talk about everything. Let's talk about outputs and inputs and our time together, and that gets you can invest in it, do it. But I hope that you have a relationship that you don't need to do that every week or every month. Hopefully you can spend 40 hours, 80 hours building a foundation and having that shared understanding, and then you're spending time optimizing towards it. So it's getting to a understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. It's purpose driven. Intentional, output focused versus input.
I let me use it as an example. I used to play the piano.
Yeah.
So in the beginning of learning piano, I learned it very mechanically, right? Playing the keys, and then hopefully, right after some time, you get to really use it as an instrument, so you can now effortlessly use it as a way to express your emotion.
Right.
So maybe I'm asserting. You tell me this is the mental model. What it takes aspirationally is to go in flow and have conversation, mutual understanding very quickly.
Yeah.
But perhaps in the beginning is the scheduling.
I think so.
Right.
I think so.
Then once you find your cadence, your symbolical together, then it becomes a lot more.
I think so.
Mutual understanding. Change of topic. Role of what do you think is like to be a man in modern times? Let's bring that in, a little bit more about the purpose of this podcast, because most of the audience members is going to be men.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. I don't know if I have a strong opinion.
No?
From a gender point of view.
Okay.
I personally do not have clarity on it, and I struggle with this concept. So I'm not going to give you my opinion. Obviously, I have a lot of strong opinions, but if I don't have one, then I don't have clarity here. So what I will do is I will respond to your questions with why I'm confused.
Okay, sure.
So the concept of diversity, the concept of equality, I don't see it out there, right? I see a lot of discrepancies in this concept, whereas people talk about equality, but they really don't want equality. People talk about diversity, but then they don't really activate on diversity. And sometimes it just gets taken too far. And there are differences in genders, and you have to respect that. But there's also, it's like, where do you draw that line of equality? Like, I saw a group of men rioting or whatever recently in LA. I was driving by talking, it was incredible, about how they were very upset that they couldn't give birth.
What?
Yes. and they were talking about how there's no equality. They were fighting for equality, and they were very upset that they could not experience this beautiful relationship of giving birth.
Are they trolling?
No,
I mean,
they
were serious.
They seem pretty serious.
Wow.
So
that's interesting.
Right. So let's just take that. I mean, it's an interesting point of view. So clearly, there's no equality, man and female. There's a biological difference there.
Correct.
So, but when you're fighting for equality, what is equality?
Right.
It's not equal. I want equality across all gender. We want equality. Well, where do you draw the line of what is eligible for equality and what is not eligible for equality? And that's where I'm confused. And that's where I'm confused, where it's like people want you to speak to the same people the same way. Women speak to women very differently, whereas women speak to men in groups. Not always the case, but I'm saying in general, like if you generalize, men, I can tell you from experience, speak very differently to men than women speaking to women. Was that equality? Can you talk very manly and bro-like and whatever the case, so one should say, okay, well then you shouldn't do that. Women shouldn't speak to women differently, and I'll use stereotypes. They shouldn't gossip about people very differently, and men shouldn't be talking very douche-like and bro-like in the locker rooms together, and that you shouldn't have that differences, and you should all speak about the same thing. But like that's where I'm confused: is what is this difference? Where do you draw the line? Where don't you draw the line? To me, when I think about just even being conscious about a gender and even thinking about, oh, you're a male, you're a female, let me change, that's where I don't like that. The fact that, and like say a diversity thing at the company, the fact that some programs, they say, you need to have more diversity, say on a more females in leadership or more females in the board, stuff like that. Whereas I agree, you should have more diversity, and there shouldn't be a boys' club, these kind of things. 100%, I'm aligned. But the tactic to say, now go fire a team of people if they were most qualified potentially with that, and to bring on arbitrary gender distribution, just because we need to artificially force diversity, and it's not because it's the best intention.
Right.
I also struggle with. But then you have this concept of, well, there's so much unintended bias, there's so much subconscious bias that happens, so in theory that sounds great, Ross, but it'll never happen. Look at what's been going on, so you have to bring in these artificial things. So it's just, for me, I don't want to have to deal with a situation differently given the gender. I don't see a reason why you should. I think that thinking is what actually causes the problem. But on the flip side, I get how that's happened over the last 100, 200, 300 years, and we're here because of that level of thinking. So again, I don't have an opinion. I don't know the answer to this. I struggle with what it means to be a modern man, or what it is to be a female, and the differences, and what is eligible for that, and what is not.
Yeah, the whole point of this conversation really is to inquire about what that is, and then for us to heighten awareness. And from that, we grapple with these questions individually. Then from that, then we can make decisions, hopefully, right, from our highest self, the way I would articulate it.
Yeah, for me, I also think that's a tactic. I think don't try to bring in bias. Don't try to separate genders, or even worse, races into certain things, and the combination of gender, race, and all these segregations. Try as much as possible to just think about the outcome and the best intention, and we'll let whatever happens. If that means all female, if that means all male, if that means a 50-50 split, exactly. Just I'm hoping by putting the best intention forward and not being biased, that over time it will become more balanced, integrated, in a healthier relationship.
So let's do a little forward looking for a moment. You're a technologist, right? You run a company, so you start companies.
Yeah.
And you have a life purpose of alleviating human suffering.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you see the role of technology to help with that? Because to me, technology is a multiplier of whatever the intention.
Yeah. So here's how I think about it. I'll give you an example of how it's technology. I think there are some ways where it becomes an enabler, and some things it becomes an inhibitor. and we're going down a very risky road in my opinion. So let me give you this example. So a few years ago, I went to Tokyo, Japan, and other places in Japan. And at the time, there wasn't Yelp. So I'm very used to, I'm hungry, I'm looking for a certain healthy type of cuisine, I'm gonna go on Yelp, I'm gonna rank it by most commented, I'm gonna look at the places, I'm gonna find out my area, I'm gonna listen to the GPS, and I'm gonna do Uber, direct. It's incredible, what a time to be alive. Mm-hmm. From a technology perspective, I can find the best restaurant, I'll talk to anyone, I can call a car to come pick me up within minutes of wherever location that I'm in, take me there, and it's like magic, right? And it's automated, and you don't have to say a word to anyone. You don't got to think about anything. It's just boom, boom, boom. And look, that's incredible for its own purposes. And I'm a power user of this stuff. Okay, so when I went to Japan, when I didn't have that, I had a panic of like 60 seconds. I'm like, how the fuck do I find where to go? Like, what do I do? How do I know? And then I'm like, well, fuck. I guess I gotta have to just talk to someone. I gotta ask around.
Right, the primal technology.
Yeah, and then when I asked someone, it was like, hey, just go down, turn right and turn left, and go explore all the restaurants. There's a bunch. It's like, whoa, what a call. I have to ask, I have to look around. And that took me on an interesting journey because it allowed me to look around. It allowed me to speak to people. It allowed me to look around my environment and to bring in more senses, to be thinking about interacting with other humans and nature, and I started to bring more attention to like the beautiful trees around me because I'm looking. I'm not just dialing and following. Turn left, go right, do this, and I'm just on autopilot. I'm gonna go on my email and send an email out, and you're focused on the interaction, and you speak with people, and you have small talk, and you have this banter, and there's some value in that human interaction, that face-to-face, person-to-person interaction, that exploratory looking around your world and going in a way, and that really stood out to me. And that was because I didn't have technology.
Right.
So that example. So I'm going to bring it back to your question. And for me, technology has a choice. You can engineer your design technology to either say eliminate human interaction, eliminate and just automate and all these things. And trust me, you know me, I love this shit. More than most people talk about automating all these foods and like that, but you have to also understand the cost of what you're giving up, and I don't think we think about it often as a society. I don't think you think about the cost of what this is. Like there's been some discussions around AI and how there's 1,000,000 times more investment towards developing AI than it is to thinking about the societal regulations and what it can mean to us and the protections that it can bring on the downside, that kind of ebbs and flows, checks and balances, and it's out of whack in the investment. So the point is, I think technology in the future hopefully will become more of an enabler to allow you to have a better human experience, and not just, I think the years of just focusing on automation, like, can you automate a better experience? Can it say, go here, turn to the left, and if you want, just explore, this is a great place, talk to people. I think that's an example and where I see technology hopefully going.
Yeah, there's a lot of design choices we could make to enhance, once again, going back to that, is it maximum, is it optimal?
Right.
And it's in the design, in the minds of the designers to make that choice.
Right.
For us. Cool, man. Well, thank you. So one last question.
Okay.
So it would be, people who are listening to this,
yeah,
what would be one thing they could do tactically if they're inspired by your worldview, if they're inspired by your narrative, to become a better man, better husband, better CEO, better entrepreneur, better human being?
Yeah, I think summarizing some of the things we're talking about, there's no need to throw out a new concept.
Sure.
I would say write down and have clarity on why you're alive. And whatever you think it is, ask yourself 5 whys deeper. So why you're alive, write it down, and ask yourself, why is it this? And then write down your answer, and then ask why is that, and go all the ways 5 times. And that would be, I would say, one tactic that I would do. And then the second is going to be, look at how you spent your last week, break it down, and see how many hours that you spent against that fifth why.
Right.
And then see how many, and then verticalize your other hours and see how it was spent. So you look at how much of your time and energy you're spending towards why you're alive versus other things. And then after you have that clarity, archetype some tactics and outputs that you're trying to get. Maybe it's say shift 20 hours more into my mission, or eliminate these hours to these ways, and write those as measurable goals that you check in every Sunday night and see how you did. And I would start with those 3 things.
Hey Ross, I really acknowledge you for sharing everything you shared. You know, you did not disappoint. As always a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise, man. Anything for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I hope the people who are discerning really learn a lot from, Ross's mindset. And he's so generously shared these tactics, how he managed his own lifestyle in order for him to be so productive at such a young age. So go take some action and follow Ross's lead. All right, guys.
Thanks all.
All right, cheers.